Hello out there, everybody. Here I am for a vid that I've wanted to do for the past few days that I've seen a lot of people I subscribe to and people that I like to watch their vids talking about their favorite Kubrick films. Kubrick is definitely one of my favorite directors. I don't know if I have an absolute favorite. If I had a favorite, it would most likely be Kubrick or Tarantino. But the hard part is you also have Scorsese, and I love Brian De Palma, so many others. So it's really hard to choose. I've always felt that Stanley Kubrick was the most artistic director, and he's the most fascinating director to me. He's the one director that I've always found most intriguing, just learning about him and his process and just everything. I love anything to do with Kubrick. But I can't really name a top anything. It's so hard for me, especially when it comes to Kubrick's films, because it could change at any moment. It depends on what kind of mood I'm in, depends on what I want to watch. The man made so many different styles of film and worked in so many different genres, and some of his films even broke genres. And it's really hard for me to say, this is the defining Kubrick film, this is the one that I love the most, and so it's really rough. But what I figured I would do is I would talk about all the films in my collection as far as Kubrick stuff goes, and which is basically everything he's ever done besides Lolita. I just never have picked up Lolita. I watched it and liked it, just never have gotten around to getting it. But the first thing here is something I made personally out of different stuff that's rare and hard to find. It's called the Stanley Kubrick Rarity Archive. It has his long-buried first film, Fear and Desire, from 1953. It's not very good quality. It looks really badly. I wish we could get a decent release of it, but Kubrick didn't want it released to anybody. He didn't want anybody to see it because he thought it was such a badly made film. It's got the documentary films on it. The Seafarers has been released on DVD and does have a decent edition. It also has the documentaries Day of the Fight and Flying Padre. One of the extra discs has some extra stuff in there, Shining soundtrack and the screenplay to Napoleon that never got made, things like that. But it's pretty cool. I thought it was pretty cool anyway. This next one is Kubrick's 1955 film Killer's Kiss. This one's pretty easy to get. It's not even a full-length film. It's a black and white film. It's an hour and 7 minutes. But it's really interesting because you can see a lot of Kubrick's narrative, early in his career. And the stuff that he did with camera work and lighting in this film is amazing. It was really good for a black and white film. Really good noir. Next film is The Killing. I don't hear a whole lot of people talk about either of these movies when they talk about Kubrick, but these are both excellent films. This movie is absolutely amazing, and if you're a fan of Tarantino, you need to see this film because the broken narrative in this is something that has obviously inspired Quentin Tarantino in his crime films, because this is one of my absolute favorite crime films of all time. If you like Res Dogs and you like Pulp Fiction, then you will like this movie, I guarantee it. You need to check it out. Next one is the Paths of Glory, and this one's really good as well. This is a really interesting film as far as it goes. Good anti-war movie. A lot of people don't like to call it an anti-war movie, but I believe it is. That's just my opinion. After watching it, it's definitely an anti-war film, but it's an excellent movie in my opinion, and don't hear a lot of folks talking about that one either. The next one would be Spartacus, which, as far as it goes, is not, obviously Kubrick's greatest work. It's an amazing film, and it was incredibly, original and ahead of its time. But the thing is if you know anything about how this movie was made, Kirk Douglas pretty much had reign over everything, and Kubrick was hired. He was like a hired gun. He was a hot director at the time, and Kirk Douglas worked with him on the Paths of Glory, and he wanted to hire him as opposed to the director that filmed the first few scenes of the movie, and Kubrick just couldn't deal with, you know, the hierarchy of having the producer and the lead actor just telling him what to do all the time. He didn't want to make movies that way. So there's next film being Dr. Strangelove. I do have Dr. Strangelove. I have the nice edition. I hear people talk about that one, so I don't really need to spend a lot of time on it. This next one is one of my absolute favorite Kubrick films. I love this movie. Barry Lyndon is such a beautiful film, and such an original film, and such a cool, epic story of following this guy around and, you know, dealing with the choices he made in his life and how he lived his life. It's just absolutely incredible. I love this film. Those of you that are Kubrick fans that are out there, if you haven't seen this, check it out. And if you have seen it, let me know what you thought. If you thought it was boring or slow or anything. I mean, you know, I think a lot of the younger viewers may not get into things like this yet, you know, at this point in their life, because maybe their attention span isn't ready, or maybe their horizons haven't been quite broadened enough to get into something like this. But hopefully, maybe someday you'll give it another try or watch it again, because it's an excellent film. It's a really interesting narrative. The next movies are obviously, you know, my Kubrick box set. If you haven't seen, what is the gem in this one, I think, is the Stanley Kubrick A Life in Pictures. If you haven't seen that, you need to see it. It's an amazing documentary. My absolute favorite documentary of all time, just about Kubrick's life and everything. But I always go ahead and throw this next to my Kubrick stuff, because Kubrick wanted to produce this film. He wanted to direct it originally, then he decided that it would be better directed by Steven Spielberg, and thought that he would do better if he just produced the film. So I always bring AI up anytime I talk about Kubrick. But there you go. That's my Kubrick stuff. Like I said, hard for me to name a #1 favorite film, or even a top 5. I mean, they're all so good. I love Eyes Wide Shut so much. Full Metal Jacket, I've watched it hundreds of times over the years. Clockwork Orange is really special. The Shining is one of the greatest horror films of all time. It's in my top 5 horror films of all time. You know, Dr. Strangelove, and just all of them. Everything the man did will turn to gold, in my opinion. They were all amazing films. But let me know what you think. I'd like to know if a lot of you out there like Barry Lyndon, because I really like Barry Lyndon a lot, and I'm just curious. So, but thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.